Go
Not good
live.
enough.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another Carolina Retirement Planners Happy Half Hour. I am Sam Shukavage, and I am coming to you live with my father, the president and founder of Carolina Retirement Planners, David Shukavage. Say hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad. Oh, hi.
And and also with us here is the lovely Ms. Amy Dresky, our director of client funds. She is behind the scenes making sure that all of the magic
Hi.
is in fact happening.
Yes, yes. Hello, hello.
Yes, so we are not talking into the abyss. If this is your first time here, remember to say hey. We can't tell that you're here. If you'd like to say hey, just type it in the chat. We'd love to know that you're here. And if you just remember to stick around to the end, we have our wine drawing. Each week we give away 2 bottles of wine delivered directly to your door. And if you did not enter this week, I will let you know how to enter at the end of the broadcast today. And we have a big topic to get into today, but we always like to start out with what day it is. And I think that today is an especially cute day and one that we should definitely be talking about. So Amy, what day is today?
It is. Okay, so there are 2 days. So today is actually National Puppy Day, but it is also Cuddly Kitten Day. So here I'll hop on. It looks like I'm just wearing a t-shirt, but this is a French Bulldog t-shirt. So now it looks like I have a gray shirt on, but I always try to wear something to coordinate. So I asked everybody, are you team puppies or team kittens? And I was a little worried for a second because I'm team puppies, and for a short minute, kittens were coming up, but then no, team puppies definitely won. Yeah.
Yep.
How,
Apparently, 2/3 of people like puppies versus kittens.
yes. How about you guys? What team are you on? If you had to pick.
If I had to
I'm
pick,
puppies.
definitely puppies. But as I was telling y'all earlier, I will snuggle any baby animal. It does not matter as long as it's not a snake.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, all little animals are adorable. I mean,
Oh, those
you know,
poor
they're so cute.
cuddly little snakes get no love, you know?
I
Yeah,
think
nah.
I think that this Thursday, everybody's a winner.
I agree. I agree definitely. I think we have one vote for both. So it is. It's hard to pick because for me, I'm just allergic to kittens. I mean, they make me super sneezy and I love them. They're
And,
adorable, but
and for those of you who've
oh
been
yeah.
to our office, you know that we have dog snacks. Our director of First Impressions has dog snacks. Kristen often brings in Tiberius. It's what an Australian Shepherd with the great blue eyes, and our own mascot, Dogma, a cute little peekapoo, comes in and his goal in life is to eat a mailman in one sitting. So he just goes
That's gonna be
nuts.
a hard thing. Yeah.
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 I think
Yeah. So
he
just to remember, we do have a dog-friendly office. As long as you have an office-friendly dog, you can always bring them on in here. We
yeah.
love to
So
see them.
it is
Or
fun.
yeah, or if you need a dog to snuggle, we usually have one.
And we have a bunch of people to say hello to. I see that, let's see, Barbara has joined us, and Dan is here. I assume his wife is also. I wonder if they're still in Florida. Miranda has joined us. Patrick, Lynn, Wayne. Yep, Dan says Barb is here, and they are checking in from Statesboro, Georgia. They're actually on their way back to their house in the mountains of North Carolina. Their delightful house overlooking the lake. And who else, Sam?
Teresa is here, our own Teresa.
Hi, Mom.
Jay and Carter are here, and they are snuggling a cuddly kitty, which sounds lovely. Brenda is here. Hey, Brenda. And my mom's here. Hi, Mom. And Debbie and Jean are here. So
And Lynn
welcome,
is here also.
everybody.
Lynn is here also.
Yeah, we said hi to Lynn.
Did we? Okay. How did I miss
Yeah,
that? Okay.
she was
Lynn
up at the
deserves
top.
two honors. What can I say? Okay.
I didn't forget about you, Lynn.
Okay.
We could say hey twice. All right, Dad. Well, I am under the impression that you have not timed this
I
presentation.
have not.
You've got
I
a lot
got
to
lots of
cover.
stuff. I'll see how,
Yeah.
and it's something that I think everyone's going to find really interesting right now.
Yeah, what is our
Because,
topic today?
Wait. I
well,
just want to say one thing before you guys start. Everybody should stay tuned because we have a giveaway today that we have never given away before. So it's actually a really cool one. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that.
Excellent.
okay. Well,
Thank
as
you, Amy.
many of you know, uh, we have a history in our country of bank failures and bank runs. This is, of course, one from the back in probably the late 20s, 30s. We just had a very famous one here, the Silicon Valley Bank. You can see that they were a lot more docile and organized when they went at that bank. And not, I won't go into a lot because I got bigger things, but this was a bank in Silicon Valley. Most of their customers were businesses, venture cap companies that had started up and recruited a lot of venture capital, and they had millions and millions in this bank. And the bank, a bank normally makes money by taking your deposit and lending it out. They had so much, they actually invested some in bonds, did a lot of things, but one was they invested in treasury bonds. And to get a decent return, they went out to longer treasury bonds, 5 years or more. And it kind of made sense a couple of years ago, but last year the Fed raised rates so fast that the interest rates on bonds went up, which caused the values to go down. People went to take their money out. They didn't, if they had to sell everything at a loss, and then there was a run on the bank, and it all kind of went to pieces. So I wanted to bring up a couple of things. I'm going to start with, when it comes to security of money, I often describe money and where we put money as the three tall buildings. In our world, we have three. If you go to any big city, Charlotte, New York, Chicago, there's a bunch of tall buildings. And with the exception of physical gold and real estate, most of our money is in one of those buildings. One of those buildings are banks. One of those buildings is our brokers, say the stock market, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, Edward Jones, and the last would be insurance companies, life insurance and annuities and things like that. So all the money's in three of those buildings. Well, here's one thing I've always realized, but I never thought about. We put money, I bet you everybody listening has put some money into a bank. You make a deposit. You like to think that you've got an asset in the bank. You've got your money in the bank. But in reality, when you give money to a bank, you're actually making a loan to that bank. You're loaning that money to the bank. And they're going to take that loan and they're going to loan it out again, hopefully for a lot more interest. They'll give you a fraction of a percent and then charge somebody 18% on their credit card and the like. But the banks aren't actually assets of the banks, they're loans. Just to prove it, I went to a course and I looked for what they talked about banks. And this is the balance sheet for a secure bank. And you can see the deposits are known as liabilities. And so you got to keep your frame of mind. My money in the bank is I'm lending it to a bank, and that loan could go bad like any other loan. Now, if you give money to the stock market, let's say you go buy a share of Apple stock. When you put money into the stock market, you really have an asset. That stock, that bond, that money is actually there in a real asset. You're not loaning the money to Fidelity. You're actually, buying an asset there and owning an asset there. And so it's a little different. Now, things could still go bad. What happens if Fidelity goes out of business or something? Well, there's where you have the SIPC. It's kind of like it insures, protects the things you have there. And if you look at this, you have up to, how did I switch like that? You have up to 500,000 in protection, and it actually has 250 for cash. So if you have purchased, say, a money market inside your Fidelity, account, and if Fidelity went out of business, they're actually going to insure that, because that's not a loan. Again, if you have a money market, you actually have an asset there. So that's the second building. The third building, and I hadn't intended to mention this, but somebody asked the question, well, what about annuities? We got these annuities. If the interest rates go up and banks go out of business, are they safe? Well, when you get to an annuity, if you give a dollar to an annuity company or a life insurance, fixed life, they actually have to have about $1.04 to say $1.06 in assets to cover it. And by assets, I mean most of it is things like treasury bonds, maybe some corporate bonds and things, but they have real assets in there to cover that dollar. And they actually have to have a positive reserve ratio. They have to give more than $1. And if by chance that company should get into trouble and it should fall to less than $1, it fell to say 99 cents on the dollar, the state they're in comes in, takes them over, replaces the board of directors, freezes the assets, and that missing penny is insured to, I think, usually about $300,000 a person for just the losses. So again, there's extra for the second two buildings. You actually have assets there, and there's a lot of protections for them. Now, I thought if we're going to look at banks, I thought, well, how often do banks fail? What's the history? This is from a website called the American Deposit Management Company. They have a brief history of U.S. bank failures, and I've just sort of trimmed off the first of each one. There was the Panic of 1819, and what happened then is the Napoleonic Wars caused market problems, and the U.S. had like its first big crisis. In 1837, we had another one because there was a panic in speculative lending in Western states and cotton prices declined. Then in 1873, we had a crisis because Germany and the United States were demonetizing and people were speculating on railroads. In 1907, a couple gentlemen attempted to corner the stock of United Copper, and they didn't succeed. It caused major losses. And again, we had a crisis. We all remember well, we don't, but we've seen pictures of the great stock market crash of 1929. I don't think we have anybody here that was maybe witnessed that. And then they go to the savings and loan crisis of 1980s and 90s. So I kind of had a history. By the way, the American Deposit Management Company didn't know is a company that is designed to let you, if you have many millions, you can funnel it through them to multiple banks to make sure you retain your coverage, which I'll talk about in the middle. In 1933, an important thing happened, and that is the United States and Franklin Roosevelt created the deposit insurance, the FDIC. Sam, today, if you have money in a bank and the bank goes bad, the FDIC covers so much of your losses. How much is that today?
250,000.
Okay, it's $250,000. We'll talk a little bit about how you arrange that. Do you know what it was in 1933 when they created this?
I
It
sure
was
don't.
$2,500 was what was covered.
Well, inflation wise, what did $2,500 get you then?
That's a good question. I wish I'd have thought of that, figured that out, but I don't know if it went up 100-fold. But
Yeah.
but they have raised it over time. But this is what it was when it started. Um, I also looked through this history book. This is off the FDIC website. You can see it here. One of the things they said that from 1982 to 91, during those 10 years, 1,400 banks, that's not a dollar sign, it's a 1,400 banks went bad. They went bankrupt. And that comes out to about one every 2.5 days. And inside this thing, they actually had a list of the year by year how many banks went bad. And you can see here from 1981 up to about 1994, we had over 1,400 going bad. All the data you could want on bank disasters. Most of us remember, I'm sure, 2008 when we had all that credit default swaps, everything went bad. Here on the red line is a graph of the banks that went bad. See, in 2005 and 6, none went bad. By 2010, 157 went bad. And then it came back, and in 2021 and 2022, none went bad again. So we had a blur, but as a whole, we've been pretty good at keeping this under control with a couple burps. By the way, if you're in a credit union, you are covered by the National Credit Union Administration. They have their own deposit, they have their own FDIC for credit unions. Both of them, in a sense, when you give them money, they got to put a little bit of aside in a fund to cover losses. We'll talk about that too in a little bit. But if you say, I have a bank account, I can get $250,000 in coverage. What happens if I want to get more coverage? And let's say I don't want to go. One way to do it is to open multiple accounts at multiple banks, but you might say, I really don't want to do that. I kind of like my bank, but I got more than 250 I want to protect. Well, one thing is you can open an account in say the husband's name, and it will be covered for 250. You can open one in the wife's name, and it'll be covered for 250. And you can open a joint account, and it'll be covered for 250. So you could get 750,000 in coverage by doing that.
That's smart. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so there's other ways you can jointly with a son or daughter or there's other ways. I won't go into all the details, but it got interesting because I'll tell you one of the things we encourage people to do are to get living trust and pass your money on with a trust instead of with a will, because it gives you a lot more. You can kind of get more control on things for it. And I said, well, our trust covered. And if you research it, you find out that there's this is one document, the section inside a big document. It's like 40 pages. They put out a simplification of these rules. It's 40 pages. I won't go through them all. I read them and I'm thinking, boy, this is confusing. So I called Dick Horgan. Dick Horgan, many of you know, is an attorney we've used for really 2 decades to help many of you get your trust. And he looked at it, he dug it up, and he comes back and he says, boy, is it confusing. They got these examples and it doesn't always work the way you would think. It is based upon the number of beneficiaries you have in your trust. So if you have a trust and there's both the husband and the wife are the trustees, or let's say they have their kid number one and their kid number two. Well, if they calculate how much coverage you have, let's say the thing had $600,000. The husband has 300, and the husband has two kids, so they have 250 each. So he can cover 500. So he's covering his 300. His wife, she also has 300. She has half of the 600, and she has two kids, so she has 500, 250,000 each. So that's how it's covered. However, if one of these kids should die and not have any children before the bank goes broke, then it changes. If one of those kids have said, they have grandkids, their kids, and they have three of those, and the trust says it goes to my kids, well, then they end up not with one here, but they end up with three here. And so it's, instead of multiplying times two, they would multiply 3 here, 2 here times 5. And basically a trust can potentially protect up to 1,250,000 if you have 5 beneficiaries. Basically, they can do more than 1,250,000, but the rules are so Byzantine. Dick and I talked, and here is our advice. If you got more than $250,000 in your trust in a bank, you might want to go down to the bank. If you've got more than 250 in any account, you should call up the bank and say, I want to talk to someone that understands your rules for FDIC coverage for my accounts. The teller will probably not know. And so you want to go down there and make sure everything's arranged to cover things. Because if you do, it's fine. All those banks that went, I cited hundreds of banks, thousands of banks that went bankrupt. They all got their money if it was less than 250. They have made an exception for the Silicon Valley Bank, and they're going to cover all of that, which brings up another interesting point. And that is, they said, I believe, and I haven't followed the news exactly, but they said that the FDIC will cover all the money in that bank. Well, this is a little graph. This is a little graph showing how many, the blue line is how many dollars they had in that account, that insurance account. Much like fire insurance, you pay money into a fire insurance company, they put it in an account. When your house burns down, they pay you out of it. You could think the FDIC is kind of like that. Well, in 2010, 9 and 10, it went negative. They ran out of money. Remember all those bank failures in 2000? And the red line is the percentage they cover. In other words, right now, if of all the dollars out there in $250,000 equivalent accounts, they have enough money there to cover 1.25% of them. So they can pay about 1% could go down, can go under, they'd be able to pay it. But you see it went negative, and then they built it back up. Well, the interesting thing is, right now they have about, I think it's $126 million in the FDIC. This is again from the FDIC. The Silicon Valley Bank had $175 million in deposits. By the way, in that bank, 90+% of them were bigger than 250. People put many, many millions in there without thinking about that restriction. So,
hey, Dad, are we talking millions or billions?
Billions, I'm sorry. Thank you. Billions, 1.75 billion, and the FDIC has about 126. Silicon Valley has 175 million in deposits, and the FDIC has 126 million in their coffers to make it up. So the government's kind of coming in to make up the difference but it's kind of interesting when you look at that. And hopefully this will encourage us all to get our act together. But overall, 250,000 people have not lost money. It does not go away. The FDIC will not take that out of there. That's backed up. No reason to worry, but be smart about it. And if you've got significantly more somewhere, you want to go down there and use one of these techniques. And we'd suggest you go talk to somebody at the bank that knows what they're doing and rearrange your accounts. Trust also have lots of protection, but you want to be sure that everything's hunky dory. And that's about it for I did it in the right amount of time. I hope that was interesting. It's interesting to see the failures of banks over the centuries, but our country's done pretty well as a whole. We've held together, and I don't think anybody should be panicking. And by the way, again, CarolinaRetirementPlanners.com is our website, and lots of great stuff there. And under events, happy half hour. How many of these do we have now, Amy?
All right, today is 135.
135. Okay. So, and there's a phone number for the office if you'd like to talk with us. Our clients know, but if you're visiting, you can call and say, hey, I want to talk to David or Sam or have a visit. And if you go to carolina15.com, you can book a 15-minute call online. And that, I think, is probably enough because we're close to the top of the hour. And
do you want to mention our giveaway?
Oh, yeah, we ought to do that. We have a booklet. It asks some questions and so shows you some perspective to make sure that your best is yet to come. You know, one of the gurus I've worked with over time said, always make sure that your future is brighter than your past. And so if you retire, you want to make sure the years ahead are even cooler than the years you got behind. This can help you. How do they get it?
All they need to do is send an email to Mary at carolinarp.com, and she will mail it out to them.
And what is our topic next week?
Oh, we have a good one next week. So kind of like coming off with the banks and everything and your money, and we're going to be talking about, will your money last as long as you do?
And that will be a good one. I think most people are probably interested in that. So
yeah, I think that's a great topic. That is definitely on everyone's mind.
Okay, Sam, what's next?
It's time for our wine drawing. So each week we give out 2 bottles of wine delivered directly to your door from Fermental Bottle Shop. They're newly located in the Cargo District in downtown Wilmington. You can enjoy wine or beer there on site, or you could take it home and enjoy it at the house. If you win, you don't have to go anywhere. It'll come right to your door. 2 bottles that are personally curated for your tastes. It's very exciting to win the wine, as some of our wine winners can tell you. And all you have to do to enter is each week, whenever we have our Facebook event come up, you click I am attending and we'll get you entered. Or if you're on our email list, you just, we'll have an email each week letting you know what our topic is. And you will answer that email and let us know if you're team puppies, team kittens, or just say, enter me into the wine drawing, and we'll get you in there. And our winner this week of 2 bottles of wine delivered directly to their door is Kathy B. So congratulations, Kathy. You are our wine winner today.
Congratulations. Yay. Yeah. Look at this. We're like right on it. We're right on time. You did great, David. I love it.
Yeah, nice work.
Can I say? I got natural timing.
You do.
Oh,
all right.
We will see you all here next week for, will my money last as long as I do? Be a lot of fun. I think that one I even go to the board for, if I'm correct. No, that one is on, that one's on the iPad again. And,
yeah.
But that's a good one. That's a good one. That's one of my key aha moments. So we're going to do that.
It is a good one.
And just a couple other things. If you have some friends that you'd like to recommend they come to our classes, we have another set coming next week. We're doing the tax part at UNCW, and the following 2 weeks, it's going to be the full class at UNCW. So that's good. Tell your friends to come. If you've come, you know it's not boring, and we pack a lot of good stuff in there and in an entertaining fashion. So I want to make sure you get them in there. They may well fill up. It's been very popular. I think people
Oh
are
yeah,
looking.
it definitely will.
So with that, I
Yeah.
guess we're here to say cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Next week.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.